Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. In this video, I've got some great emulation news for you. We're talking about PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 2, PlayStation Vita, the N64, and also the Famicom. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 emulation with Kyty. Kyty stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or it stands for Kyty, I guess, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Anyways, here there's a brand new version. Now, the first release of this emulator was released back in May. It was version 0.1.0, and yes, I did a video on it. Feel free to check it out. Anyways, here version 0.2.0 just dropped, and it is open source, it's free, and I'll leave a link to the GitHub in the description below. Now, if you want to see this emulator up in action, I'll leave a link to Brutal Sam's YouTube video in the description below. They've already gone in and tried this version out. This version is very interesting. In previous versions, PS4 emulation was the focus, and now it looks like there's been a bit of a breakthrough. PS5 emulation is starting. Now, this PS5 emulated triangle might not seem like much, but really it's opening the doors for homebrew. We have to walk before we can run. And if we can get homebrew PS5 emulation up and running, well, commercial games might be next. It'll probably be a while though. It's kind of crazy to think we've got a PS4 and PS5 emulator built into one, but we do live in crazy times. I wish the developer the best, and I can't wait to see what comes out next. And speaking about next up here, we're talking about PlayStation Vita emulation with Vita3k. There have been a ton of improvements to this emulator since we last talked about it. The last time I talked about Vita3k, I think, was back at the end of June. At that point in time, there were 205 games listed as playable. Fast forward a couple of months here, not even, and now there are 281 games listed as playable. This emulator is doing very well. If you want to take a look at the compatibility list, I will leave a link to it in the description below, so feel free to check that one out. In the last video, Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified was listed as just in-game, and now it's fully playable. On top of that, Vita3k is free. If you want to check it out, head to vita3k.org, click on download, and then pick up either the Windows Nightly or Linux Nightly. Next up here, we're talking about PlayStation 2 emulation on Android with AetherSX2. All hail the blue cube. We've talked about AetherSX2 recently with their big update that hadn't hit the Google Play Store just yet, but it looks like that big update is finally rolling out. To double check what version of AetherSX2 you're currently using is open up AetherSX2, hit the hamburger menu on the side, and then scroll down to where it says Show Version. At the time of filming, the latest release is 2632. My camera's not focusing on it, but you'll just have to take my word for it. And on a quick side note here, this version offers a ton of performance improvements. We've discussed them in previous videos, and if you're not seeing it on your device, feel free to head to the AetherSX2 Google Play Store on your device, scroll down to where you see beta testing. You can sign in to get a testing version, and it should be the latest and greatest version, provided your device supports it. And speaking about performance improvements, next up here we're talking about N64 emulation on PC with M64P. M64P has been incredibly active lately, and they've got a brand new version here that you might want to check out. This new version of M64P has performance improvements that should slightly lower the CPU usage. They've also fixed a regression in the last release, and this release marks the removal of the last game-specific hack setting. There was a hack in place that prevented flickering in San Francisco Rush, which is no longer required. Now, it's no secret that some devices and some PCs struggle with N64 emulation, so if we can get some performance improvements, I am all up for that. This emulator is free, it's open source, and I'll leave a link to the GitHub in the description below. Last up here, we're talking about Famicom emulation, kind of, with Famicom Fighters. For those that are unaware, Famicom Fighters was released a number of years ago. It's been out for a while, but it looks to be still being worked on. The Eichmann Go port of Famicom Fighters will have a proper tag mode that can allow you to control both characters, and it looks absolutely crazy. Now, as far as I know, the update is not out just yet, but if you want to learn more about the project, I'll leave a link to the website in the description below. There is a ton of great information here. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. Let me know your thoughts about anything we talked about today in the comments below. And if you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos, don't tempt fate, save your state.